If the lighting and the quality looks a little different and you see a little stubble, that's because I had to go back and totally redo this video. For some reason, the last take it didn't want to upload to YouTube after numerous times of trying. But the next subject that I want to talk to, and I guess really what I began the other video on, is that I don't know, it's something that I've talked to with several people on Skype, on Ustream, and even here on YouTube, passing messages back and forth about things and decisions that, and I've said this before, but I think maybe it's a ponder more so than anything else. And that's not anything that's really bugging me so much as it's just little thoughts about, you know, what if I had turned left one day instead of turning right? And I guess it all reflects back or goes back to the earlier discussions we had back in, I don't remember the name of the videos, but, Fly on the Wall, when we were talking about space-time and different planes and different universes and such. But let's think about our life in general right now as far as things that we decide that we're going to do, or consequences. And I know there's theories and all that is, you know, all part of the space-time continuum as far as, you know, what if I did this and what's the circumstances and the consequences of doing this. But really think about it realistically, because that theory is not just a theory if you think about it, but if we do the right things within ourselves, and not really doing the right thing, but just certain choices that we make. And I guess the best way to put it is, let's say a good example, all right? Today I went to the store, or early this morning, and I was standing behind a guy, and he was pulling stuff out of his pocket to pay for, I guess, his money to pay for his purchase. Well, a piece of paper looked like a folded up letter, and a lighter fell out of his pocket. And this guy was buying a pack of smokes, okay? So I could have done one, left the lighter and the paper on the floor and just ignored it because there was nobody else around to say anything, and just think to myself, what would have happened if the man went off on his merry way, dropped a letter, maybe it was a letter that was passed to him early in the morning from someone important, what might have been on that letter that was important, and number two, the lighter that he dropped, he bought a pack of smokes, so apparently he needed the lighter and he's not going to have a lighter, so then he's going to have to ask for a light from someone. And what consequence would that have possibly of asking another person for a light, stopping them for a moment, and then the process continues? And I think about that often because it takes me back to a particular time, an example in my life, to where I was coming home from the store one day, and I got this thought in my mind where there was something going on, and I was like, yeah, screw it, you know, if it don't work out, it's just not going to work out. And so I went home and did my thing, you know, and did what it was that I made the decision to do, and the consequence was a big one. And I often think about what lives at that particular point in time were changed dramatically. All right, and I think about a story that a guy told me that was similar to the one that I just said about myself, and that he was coming home from work one day and made a decision to take a stop instead of going home, and he always went home, like straight home from work, and he said one day he just stopped, and for whatever reason word got back to his house that he might possibly be stopping over to someone's house to do something, I guess adultery or whatever, cheating on someone. Well, that particular stop he went home and he's like, whatever. If that's what you're going to believe, forget it. Well, instead of him going home like he always does, because the stop he made wasn't important. I think it was like by the bar to have a couple of beers, and he could have actually went to the house to do that, because this guy always keeps a stockpile. I don't know what the deal was with that. We'll just take his word for it and just say he stopped for a couple of beers, because, I don't see where he would have any reason to lie about that after the fact. And so they split up, and this woman ended up with another man that she probably never would have ended up with because of that particular stop that this guy made. And I think to myself, think of the story behind that is that she ended up with this other guy who had a couple of kids, and those couple of kids weren't hers, and now she calls them family more so than when she was with this guy, and they were together for a long time. I'm talking about years and years and years. And this guy really, he just started playing the field, really kept to himself a whole lot, and became more of a recluse than he did a personable person and getting possibly back into another relationship with someone else. So that's the consequence of that. And then I take that and those stories, and I think about something. I was actually trying to get an old hard drive to work, and I don't know if I mentioned it in a different video, but I've been trying to get this hard drive to work on another computer, and I still haven't been able to do it. I've been able to pull text files out of it, and I actually had a conversation with a couple of guys on, I think it was Explosive Orange, Agent Orange, Jet Phase might have been there, and a couple other people. Lucid, I believe I discussed it with him briefly, and basically I ran across this file that I was never meant to see. Actually, it was just one of those accidental type recordings from an old D2 file. Imagine that. It was from Diablo 2 back whenever I did have, and this was like 2 seasons ago, I guess 3 years ago now, when D2JSP, the actual map hack, that what they call fucker map hack, was loaded onto my computer, and I really didn't even know it was there. I never paid attention to it. I believe this is the time that my ex actually loaded it on there when she was here. And long story short, this was one of those in-between times, because she had left for a little while because of disagreements that we had. And yeah, I had to take a trip, and nobody was here to watch the animals, so she came back here to watch the animals, and I wasn't really reading down to see what it was. I was just wondering why the file was so damn large, because whenever I scrolled the wheel, I thought, well, maybe 3 or 4 scrolls it'll be to the bottom. Maybe it's just an old text file from like logon files, because they have those all the time on those particular programs. This one actually captured text from every single time both I and her and all of our friends list were logged on everything that we said. And I was like, my God, because I was wondering why the thing was almost a gig in memory. It was maddening. I was like, what the hell is this? But anyway, I ran across this particular section where she was having a conversation with one of my good friends from Diablo. Actually lives in Canada, right up above, I think about 70 miles above Lake Ontario, or Ontario, however it's pronounced. Storm will probably brutalize me for that, but that's all right. And I got to reading this, and in reading this, I kind of was taken aback, I guess is the right way to put it, in that at that particular moment in time, at that instance that took place, I wasn't here, and it's kind of like going back in time and stepping inside of someone's head of their thoughts. Because I often think, I wonder what this person's doing now. What are they actually doing? As a matter of fact, a good example is Jet Phase, which I am actually talking with right now on Skype. Not talking with, but texting back and forth with on Skype. And he was talking about him moving from one state to another.